Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel. Today we'll be summarizing part 3. Let's get this started with. So part 3 here we have chapters 11 all the way to 14. And let's start off with summarizing all of these. Now each of these is pretty straightforward, thankfully. First of all, let's start off chapter 11. Chapter 11 itself is talking about viruses. Like viruses, I'm talking about the viruses that go ahead and invade your body, make you sick, and then probably, if not unluckily, kill you. But not before it already has a chance of going towards other humans. That's kind of one big major fault with viruses. They don't know how to spread without human contact. But then again, there are ways to go ahead and do it without human contact. So let's keep this going with. So Jared Diamond's Guns, Germs, and Steel, we'll finally be talking about the germs. This time, so we'll be talking about why the germs, or in this case viruses, were unidirectional. In the sense of like, why is it only going in one direction? Like, here's a pretty good example for this. There's North America, South America, and here is the old world. Very bad drawing of the old world. This one doesn't count. And then from this way, why did the viruses only go... I forgot to draw Britain. Why did the viruses only go this way? And why weren't there any plagues that went this way? Well, probably because there was the domesticated animals kind of reason. Firstly, you should also note that, as we mentioned before, this place has a buttload more domesticated animals. 13 of them, and all the viruses that we got infected with, which is variations of viruses that infect these 13 domestic animals. And whereas this place only had one. As you can see, there's not that many viruses to do it too. And one more thing I should probably mention is that we only sent a few people here that were like loaded with at least 13 types of viruses. Definitely much more than that too. And because of that, whereas these people only have one, so we also got sick, but relatively few people and were never returning. Whereas these guys were stuck where they were because they did not know what ships and steel were. Sure, they knew what stones and metal were, but yeah, that wasn't happening. As a result, this happened. 95% of the population that came into contact with the Europeans just disappeared, in the sense of like they died. Whereas like by us I mean like Easterners, they're more like, okay, the biggest thing that ever wiped us was the Black Plague. Even then it was like 80% of our population, and you can already see that's like millions and millions of people. So whereas we have all these domestic animals to go ahead and get our own viruses and infections from, bear with me here, we also kind of send them towards New World. Whereas because of that, the New World now has all these immunities towards the viruses that these guys have given us. Now you can go now. See ya. Now that's viruses, but that's also kind of one of the few explanations that we have. Also, this is one of the reasons why, well, the East conquered the West. Another thing that we should talk about is writing. Now, writing itself is one of the biggest inventions ever. Like the wheel is the primary invention, then the next invention after agriculture, of course, is writing, a way to keep the records of everything that you've done and everything that you will do. Amazing, isn't it? Now, one thing I should probably mention is that there are three primary types of writings that we know of. The first type is the alphabet. This is the one that I'm using right now. You have letters, and you can go ahead and mix and match them. Other multiple examples is the Korean alphabet. They're technically French and German alphabets, but they're all part of Latin alphabets, and they look much more similar to this than, say, this. And then another type is the logograms, where every word is represented by one character. One of the most influential ones, or one of the most famous ones, is Chinese. And then of course you have the syllabaries. One of the most notable ones is the Arabic alphabet, but I have absolutely no idea how to write Arabic. Speaking of writing, the invention of writing itself is one of the most important and most fun things to really talk about if you want to talk about it, as the history of how these writings were occurring. Like the Korean alphabet, for example, was created by King Sejong. King Sejong being the one who wanted to be able to get the common man to be able to read and write and understand everything that the elites were saying at the expense of his scholars. So as a result, he created his alphabet where it was based on the shapes of mouths when you're speaking the letters. Like that's how you say cute. This is how you say mium. This is how you say o, ka, pa, ma, sa, something like that. I can't really draw mouths, so don't blame me if they looked wrong. Other ones, though, they went ahead, and this became one of the bases of the alphabets, where you mix and match all of these consonants and these vowels, and then, yeah, that's about it. These are the consonants. I'll write them all down right now. Now, because I don't really have time to go ahead and write the whole thing, I'm just going to show you the keyboard. Here are all the vowels, and here are all the consonants. And essentially, you just go ahead and you combine all of these together to create the alphabet, just similar to English as well, too. Whereas English, we use all these vowels and these consonants, whereas we have, like, A, E, I, O, U. And then there's Chinese. We have to literally go ahead and write each character by hand. It used to be where you had to, like, literally write all the characters. Like, let's do one of the most famous examples. Xia. These characters themselves, each one representing different characters and different meanings. I think you'll understand what these mean. But nowadays you can literally just go ahead and type them out. Like, yeah. Even the Japanese use this in their kanji writing systems. Thankfully, there's also pinyin system where you can literally translate this into an alphabet based on the Roman numerals, based on the Roman alphabet. Whereas we also have the Arabic alphabets, but I have no idea how to write that, so we'll have to skip that. But essentially, the whole point of writing itself is to go ahead and go above the civilization, whereas some places haven't even invented the wheel yet. When the Europeans conquered the Indians, they practically haven't even invented a wheel. Sure, they had circles, but they didn't know how to use the wheels. So their primary transportation was llama. Being able to write was a big leap in civilization, as in the fact that, hey, now that I know how to write, I don't need to remember this much stuff anymore. There's this literal library of all the information that I can have in this here. And also, this is not even all the books I have, so go figures, I suppose. What else can writing do? Writing can also go ahead and give us communication where we can, well, nowadays we type it out, but back then it was a pretty big idea to go ahead and be able to communicate without speaking a word. Just writing some words onto a piece of paper, and then you could be able to do it. Da 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 da, or da da da, da 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 da. It was an incredible innovation too. And while we're on that topic of technological innovation, we're going to go ahead and move on towards chapter 13. I already talked about chapter 12. Chapter 12 was apparently about writing. Chapter 13, so this is about technological innovations. Whereas, you know that quote where Edison says, necessity is the mother of invention? Well, Jared Diamond says otherwise, whereas he says that inventions are invented long before that saying is actually used for the invention's purpose that we use it for now. For example, we have the phonograph by Thomas Edison, and Thomas Edison originally thought of 10 things that he can use for this, some of the most notable ones being able to record the last words of a person, being able to go ahead and record books for blind people to read, etc., etc. But nowhere in that list does it say to record music so that that can be replayed. Now, Thomas Edison never really thought about it, and when it was started to be used for that purpose, he was like, no music! Which went well enough that everyone started actually using the phonograph for music, and it was only until like about a decade or a few years later where Thomas Edison was like, okay, fine, the primary use of my invention was music. Recording. And I hate that. But then that went out of date when CDs and cassette tapes were invented. And even then that was outdated when we have things called iPhones or iPods, I suppose, came before iPhones. And with that, technology becomes like the necessity of invention. But then Jared Diamond also gives us 4 factors that go ahead and factor on how would a society adopt an invention. The first factor is the economic value, the efficiency, how efficient is it going to solve a problem. Second one is the cultural values that may aid or hinder its adoption. The third values is the compatibility with the social interest. Like, how can I use this in my daily life? Would it make it easier or would it make it harder? And whether its advantages are very obvious, like, oh, that's a really good advantage. That really does make it more efficient, like significantly, that is. And that's just about it. And now we go into the final boss, chapter 14. This is where politics comes to hand. The rise of the state and all of that. Well, with the rise of the state, we have several things that we can literally talk about. Politics itself and the rise of the state and creating a government to be able to go ahead and control all the parts of that government itself is one of the most interesting things that, well, Jared Diamond has ever even thought of giving us. And because of that, we have done several... how should I say this? Several awesomenesses. Several... bureaucracies that may or may not have changed the course of history for the better or for the worse. Now, if you see politics nowadays, like, say, the most extreme versions in the United States of America, you can already see how people are very dedicated towards this politics. Like, I'm a Democrat, or I'm a Republican. This is my left, this is my right. And with these two extremes, you can already see why people can become, like, go into these heated discussions. But during those days of, like, when Guns, Germs, and Steel was the powerhouse of the world, it still is the powerhouse of this world, it was more or less like a king. Whereas a king would be, like, overthrown, or be, like, success towards another king, or, like, transfer powers peacefully or forcefully towards another king, aka rebellion, or aka death. I'm not going to the technical details. We're going to talk about politics a little bit here. Now, kings themselves are generally very powerful, and because of that, they can go ahead and crush things into the ground. And because they can crush things into the ground, if they rule with an iron fist, well, they become unpopular. But if they're strong enough to, like, keep an army on their side, well, then, well, yeah, they're good. They're a good king, and they're powerful enough to be able to go ahead and rule the world with iron fist. But if they don't rule with an iron fist, but they don't get the favor of the armies, well, you can already see how well this goes. Now, I heard from CGP Grey that he created a video of this really well, but I want to re-explain this because that video is like 10 years old. So there are the keys towards power. Here are the keys towards power. Let's say this magenta person is a king, and here are the keys towards the powers. Now, these are the rewards, and he has to give them towards his loyal supporters. And because he gives them to his loyal supporters, everything else is given back towards the public. This goes to him, this goes to him, this goes to him, and whatever is remaining of the treasury will be given to the public. Now, remember that the public themselves are much more numerous, and they also must be satisfied. In a perfect society, everyone is satisfied. But giving these guys more power keeps them loyal. Whereas giving these little less power keeps them a little less loyal. But if you're just enough and keep this balance right, well, then you'll have a stable society. But until that stability goes away, well, then you're safe. But if it doesn't, you're dead. You lose your crown. That's about it. That's the entirety of Guns, Germs, and Steel. So, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Part 3 Summary. Until next time, Shihan out, peace. Bye-bye.